Cooper pulled me down the basement steps like the Labrador had a job to finish. His nails clicked on the concrete, then stopped hard at one exact spot on the drywall. My dog didn't sniff around or wander like he always does. He planted his chest close to the wall and stared at it, quiet, tense, guarding the air. "Buddy, it's late," I said, tugging the leash like this was just another weird dog moment. The Labrador didn't budge. He gave one low whine, then pressed his nose to the paint and breathed in slow, careful pulls. His tail stayed low, but his eyes never blinked, like he was keeping watch for something I couldn't see. I crouched beside him and put my palm on his ribs, feeling how tight he was holding himself. The furnace hummed, a pipe ticked, and still my Labrador kept listening to that wall like it could answer. When I tried to turn him back toward the stairs, the dog leaned his full weight the other way and refused. Cooper wasn't scared, he was certain. And standing next to my Labrador in that cold basement, I felt it too. I'm Graham, 54, and in Madison, Wisconsin, my evenings are usually simple. I walk my Labrador, fill his bowl, lock the back door, and shut down the house like I've done 1,000 times. Cooper is a rescued dog I picked up from a shelter dog run 3 years ago, all legs and patience with a soft yellow coat. Most nights my Labrador follows me like a shadow, happy as long as the routine stays the same. Tonight, the dog skipped dinner. He didn't circle his bed. He didn't bring me a toy. He kept pulling me back to the basement steps over and over like the Labrador was afraid I'd forget what he heard. I tried the calm voice I use when my dog is being stubborn. "Cooper, come on, buddy," I whispered, because it was late, and I didn't want to wake the neighbors with a barking Labrador. He didn't bark. He just stood at that patch of drywall again, nose closed, shoulders tight, listening harder than any dog should have to. I told myself it had to be pipes or a mouse or the house settling. Then my Labrador turned his head and looked right at me. Not begging, not playing, just asking me to pay attention. So I grabbed my flashlight and my phone and sat down on the cold floor beside my dog, ready to finally listen the way he was listening. Cooper moved along the basement wall like my Labrador was following a trail no human could read. He stopped, backed up, and stopped again, nose tracing the seam where drywall met concrete. This dog never cares about that corner. That's where I keep a toolbox, a couple paint cans, and a bin of winter gloves. My Labrador wedged his head between the bin and the wall and inhaled, slow and focused. Then the dog pressed his cheek to the drywall and went still, listening so hard his whole body held its breath. The furnace hummed and the dehumidifier dripped, but my rescued dog ignored all of it. Cooper lifted one paw and scratched once, careful like he didn't want to scare whatever was inside. I held my phone close, ready to prove my Labrador was reacting to nothing. For a moment, there was only house noise. Then came a faint, rhythmic scratching. 3 taps, a pause, then 3 taps again, deep behind the wall. My dog looked up at me like, "There!" My Labrador didn't bark. He just leaned into that spot and stayed, and I understood he wasn't asking anymore. I stared at that clean white drywall and thought about what it would cost if I was wrong. A hole in the wall is still a hole, even when your Labrador is sure. I tried one last time to lead my dog away, slow and gentle like I could talk him out of it. Cooper's body went heavy on the leash, all stubborn Labrador muscle, and he refused to take a step. "You're hearing ghosts," I muttered, but my dog didn't even look at me. He kept his nose at the seam and listened like a shelter dog who learned what happens when you ignore a sound. I opened my phone recorder and held it to the paint, feeling ridiculous in my own house. On the screen, the little sound bar jumped with each faint scrape, and my stomach tightened. Not pipes. Not a mouse in the open. Something trapped, scratching from deep inside where a dog can't reach. I set the flashlight on the floor and went to the toolbox, moving too fast for a calm man. The moment I grabbed a drywall saw, my Labrador's head snapped toward my hands like he understood the plan. The dog trotted back to the wall and placed himself right under the spot, guarding it. Then Cooper let out one sharp bark, louder than he'd been all night, and dropped flat across my path. My Labrador wasn't throwing a fit. He was blocking me from walking away again. So I knelt beside my dog, put my ear to the drywall one more time, and heard the scratching answer back. The drywall saw bit in, and Cooper, my Labrador, didn't blink once. Dust fell onto his paws, and my dog stayed planted, guarding the spot. I cut a small square, telling myself I could patch it if this was nothing. The scratching stopped the second the blade broke through and the basement went too quiet. My Labrador froze, ears forward, as if he was afraid one more sound would vanish. Then a tiny, muffled cry pushed back through the hole, thin and tired, like a breath that almost gave up. Cooper let out a soft whine and pressed his nose near the opening without touching it. "Okay," I whispered, because my dog had been right, and I felt sick for doubting him. I pulled away the insulation with 2 fingers, slow, and my rescue dog watched every move. Behind the fiberglass, something small was wedged between a stud and the backboard. A kitten, shivering and dusty, eyes half closed, body limp with thirst, stuck where no puppy or dog could reach. My Labrador stepped back on his own, giving her air, then looked at me like, "Now." I slid my hand in, felt a faint twitch, and lifted her free into the light. She was ice cold in my palm, lighter than she should be. Cooper stared at her, then at the stairs, and my dog made one urgent sound that meant we had to move fast. I carried her upstairs, and Cooper followed close, my Labrador moving like an escort. My dog kept checking my hands, then my face, like he was counting seconds. I lined a shoebox with a towel, warmed a rice sock, and tucked it under one corner for gentle heat. Cooper, my rescued dog, sat beside the box and held perfectly still. I touched one warm drop of water to the kitten's mouth, then another. She swallowed, slow, and my Labrador's tight shoulders eased a little. I called a local rescue dogs foster volunteer from our old shelter dog days, and she told me, "Warmth first, tiny sips, no rushing." My Labrador listened to that voice like it was a promise. On the kitchen floor, the Labrador lay down with his chin on his paws, watching without crowding. When the kitten made a faint sound, my dog lifted his head and breathed out, steady and quiet. Then Cooper stood, walked to the back door, stared at the lock, and looked at me like there was one more thing he needed me to do. I checked the back door lock, even though I'd already done it, because my Labrador asked me to. Cooper watched the latch click, then followed me back to the kitchen like the dog needed proof the night was safe. The kitten stayed in her towel nest on the floor, a little warmer now, breathing easier between tiny sips. My Labrador kept a respectful distance, like a careful shelter dog who knows small bodies break easily. Every few minutes, he leaned in, sniffed the air, then sat back down, guarding without touching. It was the strangest kind of quiet. No big drama, no victory lap, just my dog choosing to stay on duty. I went back downstairs to the basement and stared at the hole in the drywall. The insulation was torn back like a secret, and I could see how deep she'd been wedged. All I could think was that I'd walked past that wall all week without hearing a thing. But my Labrador heard it through paint and wood and whatever else was in the way. When I came back up, Cooper's eyes met mine, and the dog looked calmer, like the job was finally turning into relief. He lay down beside the box, and for the first time all night, my Labrador closed his eyes for a second. Then the kitten made a tiny squeak, and my dog opened them again, ready. By the time the house clock rolled later into the evening, her paws had stopped trembling so hard. Cooper lifted his head and looked at me, and I could tell my Labrador wasn't finished teaching me something. By the end of that same night, the kitten was warmer, quieter, and able to drink a little without fighting for breath. Cooper stayed near her like a Labrador guard dog, not possessive, just present. My dog didn't need praise. He didn't need a treat. He needed me to listen the first time. That's the part I can't shake. A Labrador doesn't argue with drywall for fun. A rescued dog doesn't spend hours holding one spot because he's bored. Cooper, my dog, heard a life where I heard nothing, and he kept me there until my hands finally did what my Labrador couldn't do alone. Dogs never betray the moment they know matters. That's why dog lovers keep coming back to dog stories like this, the quiet kind where a dog chooses responsibility over comfort. If you've got your own Labrador or any dog who ever stopped you for no good reason, I'd love to hear it. Share your dog stories in the comments, especially the times your dog changed your route, your decision, or your whole night the way my Labrador did.